Hi, my name is Jeannie Heck, and some of you may recognize me as one of the instructors in the HIT department. I teach most of the medical coding classes, and in fact, you may have had me as an instructor. I am an adjunct faculty member for the college, but my full-time job is as a medical coder, and I've been in the field for the past 25 years. So the purpose of this video is to introduce you into the field, to talk about the differences between an inpatient and an outpatient coder. And the second part of this, which is a totally separate presentation, is going to be taking you into my office via the computer so that you can see what it is like to look at the computer and how the codes are entered. I think that pulling that all together would be really helpful for those of you who really have no idea of what it would be like to enter the medical codes into an actual computer and see the whole process. I've had the privilege over the past 25 years of working both as an inpatient coder and an outpatient coder. I'm going to honestly tell you that I probably prefer doing outpatient coding more, and I'm going to explain the reasons why. But first, what I'd like to do is explain to you when I was an inpatient coder, what I was able to do and what it would be like to be an inpatient coder. Depending upon the hospital, and that is really true, it depends whether you're working at a city hospital, maybe you're at a hospital that specializes a lot in cardiology, maybe you're at a children's hospital, maybe you're working at a burn hospital. So depending upon what type of a hospital you're working at, that will determine what type of cases that you're coding. Obviously, if you're working at a hospital that is really known for its cardiac procedures, then you're probably going to do a lot of cardiovascular coding, as opposed to maybe a smaller community hospital where you're going to see a mix of a lot of different things. Also, if you work as an inpatient coder, most hospitals have same-day surgical procedures that happen. They also have emergency departments, and some of them may have transitional care units, meaning that instead of being shipped out to a rehab, the hospital could transfer you from being an inpatient on a floor to another floor within that hospital, because they have the what we call transitional care unit located right within the hospital itself. Like I said, when I worked as an inpatient coder, I was able to code all of what I just discussed. Whereas in some inpatient coding positions, you're just doing inpatient coding. I also know in another hospital that there's a person who works in the hospital, but all that particular coder does is all of the same-day surgical procedures. So you can see why it's equally important to learn both outpatient and inpatient coding. We have ICD-10 in 2014, and you know our CPT codes are still the same. So again, in an inpatient coding position, you may just code inpatient, or you may be able to code the same-day surgicals, emergency department, etc. But I do think that a lot of students think that it's more prestigious or glamorous to have an inpatient coding position, and that an outpatient position is less desirable. And I'm here to tell you that it's really not so. And let me now explain a couple reasons of why I think I prefer outpatient to inpatient. In the outpatient arena, I have patient contact. I deal more with the entire staff of the practice. I absolutely have way more physician contact working in an outpatient environment than an inpatient environment. And not only do I get to do the medical coding, I can do the data entry of the patient themselves. I can look into the insurance information. I do the billing of that particular encounter, and I do the insurance explanation of benefits, or EOB reconciliation. So what I'm really saying is that I have more variety, and it's easier or more fun, in my opinion, to have that variety instead of going in and just coding from the minute I sit down until the minute I leave. I also have been employed as a contract coder. Now, typically, to get a position as a contract coder, you absolutely have to be experienced, because you're called into different hospitals that are behind, and you basically just go in there and code from the minute you get in until the minute you leave. And I will tell you for sure that productivity is very, very important in the inpatient environment, and especially as a contract coder. Whether you work for a hospital or a contract coding position, they are absolutely going to be monitoring your productivity and seeing how fast you are. And that's why you'll see that the coding certification exams themselves are timed, just like your exams within the college have been timed. So, what the very, very first thing that I recommend upon graduation with your certificate, or whether you went through the 2-year program, is to become certified. The medical coding program here prepares you to sit for AHIMA's CCA. That would absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, be what I would highly recommend that you do. But I would study for that test like as if you're studying for any other college level exam. There are terrific prep books available, which I also really recommend getting, because they have mock exams, they have the test questions from all the different categories that you will be tested on. But as you know, the CCA exam is offered through AHIMA. If you go on their website, you can certainly find out more information about that. The second certification exam that I would recommend, and in this order, is the American Academy of Professional Coders CPC exam. This is more geared toward outpatient coding, but it is definitely, it's almost considered like, quote unquote, an intermediate level certification, with the CCS being the other certification exam that is offered by AHIMA, but that is definitely more of an inpatient coding exam. There are outpatient questions, just like on the CPC, there are inpatient questions. So I'm giving you basics. But for the AHIMA CCS, they definitely recommend that you've had at least a couple of years of inpatient coding experience. But that is the order that I would recommend. Also, I would begin your networking. The AAPC is strictly a medical coding organization. They have local chapters that if you go on their website and follow the link to find your local chapter, you put your zip code in, and the local chapters that are in your area will come up, and I would very much encourage you to start attending the local meetings. You can network with other medical coders, and once you do become certified, you need to maintain that credential, and the way to maintain the credential is through obtaining these continuing education units, or CEUs. And by going to the meetings, that's one way to get them. New Jersey also has an AHIMA branch that I believe they meet once a month. You can go on their website to find out where they're local, or the Pennsylvania AHIMA. But again, I highly encourage looking into these local groups of organizations so that you can get out into the field and meet other people. I want to also tell you about why I prefer and why I really like I had told you, with an outpatient position, I get to see the whole process. I meet more with the physicians. I get to see the progress notes. And of course, you would see that in an inpatient environment. But I get to get up and down out of my chair more in the outpatient environment. And I really, really like the variety. I work in a family practice office. So those are the codes. We see a little bit of everything, to be honest with you. We see anything from, a laceration to, the docs have a lot of patients that are diabetics or, hypertensive, have, gout. I mean, a myriad of different disease processes. If you worked in the outpatient arena and you worked for a specialist, then like I always explained in the CPT class, you would naturally become an expert at that section and at that specialty. When we're learning it in a classroom environment, we're learning the entire manual. So that seems overwhelming, but I try to encourage students to keep it real, meaning, as I said, in the real world, you're going to be dealing with really just a much smaller section. And so it becomes much, much more manageable, and you'll become an expert in that particular area. So like I said, this first part is just me talking about the difference between an inpatient and an outpatient medical coder. I do encourage you again to become certified as soon as you possibly can, because that will definitely prove self-worth. I would apply for all jobs irregardless of the amount of years that they're asking for. I would try to volunteer at a local hospital or at an ambulatory surgical center or at a local physician practice, just so that you could get to meet other medical coders and see what it's like. And that is, again, the reason for the second part of this presentation, which is going to be us looking at progress notes and entering patient information into the computer, showing you where the codes go on the 1500 form, and then how those forms would be electronically submitted to the insurance company. Thank you.